Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Justin Young. He is Josh Tech. Welcome to the National Signing Day live show right here on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Also on YouTube. We appreciate you joining us today. We're going to be spending a lot of time right here on this live stream. We have a lot to talk about. We want to go through our favorite classes. We're going to talk about where guys are making decisions. And really for us at HoopSeen, this is really the end of the road for the things that why we do what we do, running these big national events, traveling the country, seeing players from all over the place. It's really kind of our why, and we're excited to have you join us, whether you join us live or whether you join us later as we kind of push these out back on rebroadcast and different recordings. But on the show today, we're going to go through a number of things, Josh and I. We're going to talk about our favorite classes. We're going to obviously talk about the Duke Blue Devils, because how can you not? We're going to talk about the top players. We're also going to talk about the teams that can mess up your bracket in March, which we've talked about before. Listen, the talent gap is no longer existing, okay? And so we want to make sure we bring in those teams into the conversation, talk about them. We got some hot burning questions that we're going to talk about as well throughout the process of today, and we're going to try to involve you as much as we can. But we're going to go. We have no time restrictions whatsoever. So if you see it, come back and join us later on. If you want to watch a replay, you can. But nevertheless, Josh, you caffeinated, you ready to go, you buckled up, you strapped in.
I am caffeinated, and I have more caffeine here in the form of a nice tea, and that's going to be good for my voice as we go on. And really quickly, if we're talking about teams that can mess up your bracket, I've already done a really bad job at providing my friends betting advice in that regard. I thought UNC Asheville would cover last night against Michigan, and that didn't happen. So don't listen to me. Listen to JY. He's the guy. If you want to listen, if you want bracket busters, listen to JY. Don't listen to me.
Those are my two bets. I believe it or not, I picked James Madison to win. I mentioned
I can confirm that you told me before it even happened.
And I said that UNC Asheville would not cover the 10.5. So I'm actually sitting pretty. I got the large cup of coffee today because of my own personal advice. But this is not a gambling show. This is not a best bet show. This is a recruiting show. We're going to stay on brand to what we do, and it is National Signing Day.
Recruit me.
No, I'm not bringing you on board for the pick'ems. But again, if you're joining us now, and we want more people to kind of come in. At HoopSeen, we are an event company. We run travel team events from really our primary area is in the Southeast. We see a lot of players from even before they come to high school kind of go through the process of playing travel ball. Like Isaiah Collier is a guy that we've seen a ton, who's now a freshman at USC. And we want to make sure that we get that story told from the very beginning to the time they get to college. And today's a big day for a lot of players as they put their ink to paper and they sign their national letters of intent. If you're a player, if you're a coach or a parent, you're watching it, still tons of time. I mean, there's no rush to the calendar. You can sign this week. You've got a week to sign, but you also have plenty of time to make decisions. And as we see the transfer portal kind of grow more legs, we're seeing more players sign late. That's perfectly fine. It's totally okay. There's no rush to this process. Is make sure you find the best fit for you. And we're going to talk about that a lot today because we have a lot of data support kind of this new change of recruiting theory. So we'll get into that later today. Again, to kind of bring you up to speed, we're going to talk about our favorite classes, not necessarily our top 10 in order, because I still think there's a lot of things that kind of play out. And we put a lot of emphasis on fit, on where a guy's going to be going. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some hot questions along the way. We've got some storylines. We're going to probably do a couple of live streams today. This is our first one. We're going to talk about that. And later we'll probably break it down into more conference level stuff, kind of going through it. So, Josh, you ready to roll? You ready to do this?
As always, man, I'm ready to go.
Okay, let's start at the very top. I think we've got to talk about the Duke Blue Devils right there. I think it's easy to say that we've put the crown on the Blue Devils, and they are the top class for a bevy of reasons. And there's some talking points with this group, but when Cooper Flagg joined the brotherhood, if you will, which I'm still interesting that they kind of took that term. I feel like North Carolina used that for a long time. But when Cooper Flagg said he was going to go to Durham, North Carolina, and play college, that kind of put the crown on it. Talk to me about this class. What do you like about it? Are you surprised John Shire in such a short amount of time has the number one class, or is it just Duke being Duke?
That is just Duke being Duke. I believe he had the number one class last year too, and he might have had the number one class the year before too, when he was the primary recruiter on the way on K's last, his last go around. So this is not surprising. What I love about this class is, man, it's got a lot of talent. I'll tell you that much. They're hoarding talent, and they've got talent at every position. I mean, power forward, center, small forward, guards. I think the only thing they're missing is a true point guard, and they're still not out on a couple guys. I think Dylan Harper's a guy that's still in they're in the mix for, and VJ Edgecombe's a guy they're still in the mix for. So that could shore up the backcourt of this class. And boy, if they get both those guys, this is something.
Yeah, I mean, let's start with the obvious. Let's start with Cooper Flagg here, as I'm kind of retweeting this out to my followers here. So there's gonna be a lot of multitasking here. So bear with us as we kind of go through this. But I think with Cooper Flagg, obviously he's a guy that like my question is like, what's the value for him? Is he gonna have an RJ Barrett season? Is he going to be a Zion season, like one of the all-time great seasons? Is he going to be Kyle Filipowski? Like, what kind of impact do we feel like he can be? And we've seen this before too with the number one player that comes in. The expectation for the number one player in the country is an All-American right out of the gate, and that seems to be the case. Does he have that kind of value, or is this class paired with the current roster that will be there next year, which obviously we don't know who will stick around and who doesn't? But does Cooper Flagg have freshman All-American capabilities right out of the gate as a true freshman coming in from Montverde Academy?
Yeah, absolutely he does. Yeah, I think that he's at least going to be in the discussion. Like, I mean, I would be shocked if he isn't in the discussion for an All-American during his freshman year.
I think we can agree that he's not Zion Williamson freshman year good, because I think Zion's in that rare air category. Like Zion was, I think people forget just how good he was based on his injury and how much he hasn't played. He's kind of been out of sight, out of mind. But Zion's one of the greatest freshman seasons of all time, followed up by RJ Barrett, who also put up, astonishing numbers as a freshman. I guess my question is, what can be the expectation as far as production is concerned for a guy like Cooper Flagg?
I mean, I don't see it being too far off from at least one of those guys. I mean, I think offensively it might not be as stark as what like a guy like Zion Williamson did, where he was just really, bulldozed his way through the ACC and through their schedule. But I think Cooper Flagg's, I mean, his obviously his best trait is his defense. So I think he's going to really make an impact on that end of the floor. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to go ahead and crown him Zion Williamson or anything like that, but I think he will be, in the main spotlight, in the main discussion the entire season because of him playing well, not because of him playing poorly and it being like, oh my God, what's wrong with Cooper Flagg kind of discussion. I think he's just going to come in and be Cooper Flagg, be very good.
Sure. I mean, he's had success every step along the way, right? We've seen it certainly with the Nike EYBL circuit, playing 16 unders nonetheless. And he's had a lot of, but within that structure, you're playing the Boozer twins. I mean, you're playing some high-level guys, AJ DeBonta, you're matched up with him every once in a while. So we've seen him have that kind of impact also at Montverde, which you're going to see them, whether you have a TV, whether you can watch streaming, whatever the case may be, you're going to see Cooper Flagg if you haven't already. If you're watching the stream, you've probably watched Cooper Flagg.
Yeah, I think a fair point to bring up could be this is with Montverde, he hasn't put up like eye-popping, astonishing numbers that he did over the travel season or anything like that. And maybe that's just because of the amount of talent around him. And if you're, Duke has a ton of talent around him. So maybe if you're going to be in the camp that says that Cooper Flagg isn't going to have this dominant, insane, crazy season, maybe you could point to that as your kind of one of your cornerstone arguments. Be like, yeah, he kind of just plays more of a role on a loaded Montverde team. So thus he'll play more of a role on a loaded Duke team as opposed to being the video game numbers kind of guy.
It's a historically talented Montverde team as well. So, I mean, I think to your point, like every car is fast that's on the Autobahn, right? Like,
yeah.
If every car is going 100 miles an hour, you don't realize just how fast every car is, right?
Yeah.
Sure. So I think that's a fair statement. Let's kind of dive deeper into this Duke class, though. It's just not Cooper Flagg. It's just not the number one player in the country. They obviously have a bunch of other guys coming to the table. Let's go to one of your favorites, in Con Knipple. And we've talked about him before on previous shows, and we've talked about his well, I'll just kind of throw it to you. Like, we've seen great shooters put on a Duke uniform as a freshman, and maybe if he sticks around longer than that, where is his potential to line up with the all-time greats there in Durham as a shooter?
Yeah, just as a pure shooter, I mean, I think he'll be – I mean, I don't know if he'll be like legendary J.J. Redick style shooter, but he'll be pretty damn good. And I think what I love about Con is he's more than just a shooter, right? Like he led the EYBL in scoring, not just because he was a great shooter, which he is, but he's just a very savvy scorer. He's kind of got like a bigger kind of, I don't know, bulkier, stronger frame. He can really use it to power his way to the basket. He's really savvy, makes the right play routinely. He doesn't, and this is probably a discussion we're going to have here in a second, but he doesn't have typical Duke villain-ish in him. He is more the likable kind of guy where you're like, damn, I hate Duke, but that guy's pretty good. That guy's pretty good.
Yeah, every coach that I've talked to over the in this recruiting cycle have had nothing but great things to say about Con Knipple. Like basketball guys know that dude's a dude, right?
Yeah, for sure. He's another guy that's shown it every step of the way. And you opened up the show talking about what we do at HoopSeen. We had Con Knipple as a 15U player at our Best of the South event, and at that event, Virginia and Wisconsin were there watching him early. So he's had a reputation with pretty high level programs for quite some time.
Yeah, and then when you mix in the fact, and this to me is one of the pieces of Cooper Flagg that makes him why he is who he is, right? The number one player is his passing ability is outstanding. And I think you learn that, you cultivate that. Listen, he's playing with Liam McNeely, who's going to Indiana, who I think could step in and be an instant impact guy there in Bloomington. And you're getting a guy very similar in Con Knipple, a guy that can shoot, guy that can score, pretty versatile. So that passing that Cooper Flagg brings to the table. Cooper Flagg is really good at the high elbows and attacking into the basket, whether he's finding a slashing guy going the rim or he's finding a guy in the corner for a three. Really interested to see what kind of action John Shire and his staff can draw up when you look at that kind of that two-man game. But it's not just a two-man class. I mean, this is a stellar class with Isaiah Evans, who's got a chance to be like a high ceiling guy and very similar to, when we think about Duke, I mean, I think Brandon Ingram is one of the most underrated guys that I've seen come out of high school like the last 10 years, right? Like legitimately, the guy's an unbelievable player. He's averaged 25 points in the NBA. No one really talks about him. I don't know if it's because he's down in New Orleans or whatever the case may be, but Isaiah Evans could have that same sort of, opportunity. I don't know if he's quite the scorer that Brandon Ingram is. He's not as long. And we saw Brandon Ingram, as a 14U guy. He played a ton with us playing with Jerry Stackhouse at HoopSeen. So we knew what we were going to see with him coming up. I mean, I remember talking with my brother who was with the Sixers at the time, and they were thinking between Brandon Ingram and Ben Simmons. Like they had them both in for different workouts. And I'm like, dude, Brandon Ingram, I think, has got a chance to be an all-star. And Ben Simmons, I do worry about the scoring. So coming in, Brandon Ingram had a chance to be the number one pick. Isaiah Evans, I don't know if he's a number one pick type of guy, but there's a high enough ceiling there where his best days may be better as a pro than maybe even a shortstop in the collegiate level.
Yeah, I think outside of Cooper Flagg, we and a lot of the industry, maybe the rest of the industry, doesn't have Isaiah Evans even the second most highly rated in this class for Duke. But I think outside of Cooper Flagg, he has the most high pro potential because of his frame. And if you're a Duke student and you're trying to get drunk, play a drinking game where you drink every time someone compares him to Brandon Ingram, because I promise you this, if you're watching this show, that when this class gets to college, every single broadcast, they're going to be like, you know what? He kind of reminds me of Brandon Ingram. Every single time, every single broadcast, you're going to get trashed.
Well, I didn't anticipate us having gambling and drinking discussions in the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes of the show, but here we are on a Wednesday afternoon.
Well, hey, man, you've been doing a lot of shows with me. Sometimes things can just...
That's true. That's true. That is very true. This class has, not only does it have star power, but it has depth. And I think that's really the key to a class. And I've kind of come up with this term that if someone uses it, I hope I get royalties, but I've called them sustainable recruits. And guys that you have to recruit that you stay the course with, that stay there for 4 years, hopefully 3 years, that their better days as a junior and senior in college. They take time to develop. That I think more and more classes, as they build with older rosters, have to have those type of guys, that you're not always restoring the roster, and you've got to have sustainable players. I think these last two guys, I think Patrick forgive me, you're going to have to say it because I can never say it. There we go.
At Gongba.
He could be a shorter stay guy just because of what he brings to the table. Was kind of I don't call him a late riser, but certainly had a tremendous summer on the travel circuit and after UIBL, like finished really, really well. I could see him being a guy just because, again, a lot of times when you bring in these types of classes, it's a matter of just kind of waiting for your opportunity to be the guy, or do you just say, hey, I'm ready to go and just see what I can do on the workouts? So Patrick, say it?
Gongba.
Thank you. I could be that guy. We'll probably be doing that a lot because I can never pronounce names. But I think he's that type of guy that could be a sustainable recruit that is a big-time defensive presence, is a big-time, post presence. He's not Mark Williams. I think Mark Williams was really good, but I think Patrick has a chance to come in there and play a really high level role. I mean, you saw him a lot more than me. Like, what value is he bringing into the table comparative to maybe other Duke frontline guys that they've had?
I think you kind of nailed it with his, defensive ability, and I think it's his versatility too. He's shown
Sure.
this is where his improvement was, at least from my purview, was in his versatility. He was able to kind of step away, make plays with the ball in his hands, make shots from the perimeter, made really good passing reads. I think he's going to be a guy that kind of does. He's almost like plays like a Cooper Flag light kind of role, where he's a bigger guy and he does a lot of defensive stuff around the rim. Pat's going to be more around the rim than Cooper is, but he also does a lot of the skills kind of stuff that you want a modern day forward to do, I guess. I think you kind of nailed it with this class for Duke when you said that they're sustainable. I think Khan's sustainable. I think Pat's sustainable, and then we're going to get to him at some point. I'm sure Darren Harris is also a sustainable guy. I think the only two that I would see leaving, and Cooper Flags, you can all go ahead and pack his short-term suitcase. And I think Isaiah Evans could also be a one-and-done guy if he has a really good year. But I think the rest of those guys will stick around and kind of be like the class that we're seeing right now with Duke, with Tyrese Proctor and Kyle Filipowski and all those guys that stuck around after their freshman seasons. And you want to talk about sustainability. Duke has Jeremy Roach right now, so I think he's been there for seemingly forever. So I think you kind of nailed it. They are recruiting to that and in addition to recruiting the high level or get out of here in 6 months kind of guy. So I think John Shire is kind of doing this strategically.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think that to me is the part when we talk about best recruiters now, and I always think it gets overlooked in how you keep guys on your roster, right? The fact that Kyle Filipowski stuck around, we don't see guys like that lead Duke, that have that type of season that come back.
Tyrese Proctor,
yeah. I mean, Tyrese Proctor, I would think that he's got a chance to play, 10 minutes in the NBA right now. Like, I think he's got that type of talent. Certainly overachieved. I think maybe a little bit last year in a good way for the Blue Devils. You brought up Darren Harris, and really he's the last guy that we want to bring up. But he was the first guy that committed to Duke. I feel like he's been committed to Duke for over 2-3 years in this process. But he's a player that I think as a senior. Listen, he's playing a high-level basketball in the DMV area. He's playing high-level travel basketball. He's a guy that won't be you go to Chapel Hill, you go wherever Duke's going to play on the road, Madison Square Garden. No light is too bright for him because I think he's been through that. I think he understands that. I think he's probably better than what people give him credit for. And I don't think his talent is the same as this, but I'm going to show my edge. When I first got into this, Duke was my beat. This was 20-plus years ago. And there was a guy named David McClure out of Connecticut that played at Duke that really, I think his senior year really kind of showed his value, but it took him a while to kind of get into that rotation because they had so many great players coming through there. But when David McClure was a senior, you could probably ask anybody on that coaching staff. He was incredibly valuable to what they were as a team. And I would bet that Darren Harris kind of falls in that same category, that when he's a junior and senior, big shot maker, again, unfazed by big bright lights, a really important guy. As we know, culture is everything within that Duke program. I could see Darren Harris being a really valuable guy in that category, in that space. And last hot take, I could see him even becoming a guy that comes back to the program, that works on the coaching staff. And, we kind of see like this continuation of what Duke's all about. But Darren Harris, for me, feels like that type of guy.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's not, Cooper Flag steals a lot of the star power in this class, but a guy like Darren Harris is going to be very valuable. I even think he could impact the game right away because of how good of a shooter he is. Like you said, he's going to be a guy that really, as an upperclassman, takes center stage. But early on, I think he's going to be able to get some good minutes as a shooter and a guy that can get you a bucket.
We've spent a lot of time on Duke, rightfully so. It's our number one class there is in the class of 2024. I got a couple questions. Okay, we've talked about this before. It's your first time joining us here on our live stream. We appreciate that. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you hit that like button and make sure you subscribe to our channel. If you're watching this on Twitter or X, feel free to retweet it or repost it or whatever we're calling that. Help us out a little bit. We want to try to get that out there. We're going to be doing a live show for the foreseeable future today. We'll also have another one a little bit later tonight for the late night crowd. So giving our hand a try at this as well. But we've talked about Cooper Flag before, and I'm on record to say I thought Connecticut, quite frankly, was a better fit. I know that sounds really weird, but for Cooper Flag individually. And you brought up Montverde, and I think that was a good parallel because I think it's going to be a really similar situation here at Duke with all these players that they have, where maybe the individual Cooper Flag season gets scaled back a little bit because of the talent, because of the way that they play at Duke. But I do wonder, had he gone to Connecticut, would we see more of that, what I was talking about earlier, that Zion Williamson type of impact, 25 and 12 type of season as a freshman? And I think I will always wonder, what if, had he gone to Connecticut, would that change the trajectory of his career as a player? I'm really curious to think about how that would have played out. So I don't know. We'll see. We always know that there's you brought up Con Knipple being maybe bulletproof to being on the all-time hate list. We've seen J.J. Redick be villain number one in College Park when they were playing Maryland. Obviously, Grayson Allen. I don't know if I need to explain that for much further, but does Cooper Flag have that? He's certainly confident, right? He'll let you know. If you follow anything on social media, he blocks shots and he would make sure that people knew that you can't bring that stuff around him. Does Cooper Flag kind of move into this category on a scale of 1 to Christian Laettner? Where can he line up in the?
Oh, hell yeah. I think he's going to be such a villain, and I think it's going to be so great for college basketball. It is so good when Duke has that kind of that bad guy, right? Like, everybody wants the guy that they can root against, and then for Duke, it's going to be their fans are going to really rally around him, and that's what makes the sport really fun and what makes it unique and all of that stuff. I think Cooper Flag has a chance to really be a lightning rod within the sport as soon as he gets there, because you're right, he is really confident. And hell, if I were that good at basketball, I'd be pretty confident too. So like, I don't blame the guy for being confident. I think it's gonna be really entertaining. He's gonna put on a show, and like I said, I think Khan's gonna be a guy that really, like Luke Kennard, I don't feel like was the typical Duke villain, because he had Grayson Allen kind of taking that away from him, right? And I think Con Knipple can kind of play that same kind of Batman to the Robin, if you will.
I was waiting for a Luke Kennard comp for Con Knipple. I really was.
Well, it was probably going to come at some point, but yeah. I mean, it's pretty apt, I think.
I like to listen again. If you're new to the show, I'm the player comp guy. So for Josh Tech to get into player comp business, I'm freaking stoked. This could be a really good show today. If you're going to give me one player comp per class, I would make my day.
Oh, I don't know if I could do that, but it's got to come.
I believe in you. I feel like I've given you enough Yoda training, but you can probably pull that off.
No, we'll see. I'm not going to force it. Things get bad when you force them,
Don't ever force it. Don't ever force it. Should we move on? I feel like we've given Duke a lot of time here. We've given Duke about 20 minutes of our day.
They're going to get a lot of time in the season, so let's go ahead and
I think so.
You guys are good, and they might not be done. Let's just remember there's still 2 guys left on the board as of this recording. I haven't checked Twitter or any of the.
Okay, let's wrap it up on that. Then let's bring up some odds. Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you on Dylan Harper being a Duke Blue Devil?
6.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of mysterious, that one. I think Rutgers certainly is in play. We're going to talk about them.
Yeah, I can't root against Duke. I can't vote against Duke, but Rutgers is really, really in there on that one. So that's why I'm not more confident in Duke. I'm still leaning Duke.
The old, who was it? Dante Jones, the old Rutgers Duke, going from Rutgers to Duke. Maybe it's the Dante Jones flavor here. Yeah, I like 6. I'll take that 6. Actually, I'm with you on that. I might go like 6.2 just to play prices right with you and go over.
No, I almost added a point to it as well, but I don't know. Yeah, 6 feels like the move. I feel like
feels like the move. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm aligned with you there. VJ Edgecombe, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your level of confidence of him being a Duke Blue Devil?
Man, like, I got to go back to that visit that they went on. I mean, it was him, Cooper Flag, and Pat Gongba. 2 out of those 3 committed already, so I got to go like 8. I feel like that's a really strong lean, and I feel like he's a piece that they're needing in that class, like that super freaky athletic guy. You know what I'm saying? That usually Duke always has in a class. So I think that I don't know, man. I have a hard time rooting against him. That visit seemed to have had some magic on it.
That's my number.
Oh wow.
I'm going to go a lot lower.
Well, I don't know if we're going to do this later on in the show, but do you have an opinion of where he's going to go?
No clue.
Okay.
No clue. I mean, listen, if I'm watching Baylor last night with Jacoby Walter, I'm feeling pretty damn good. Like, man, maybe I can go do that there.
Yeah. Hey, no, I mean, what a show that was. That was really impressive. But yeah, no.
I'm more of a 3. I've never felt like Duke is there. I have no good reason to do that other than the fact that I play a lot of poker and sometimes I think someone's bluffing. That's all.
Sure.
That's all I got for that. All right, so we've talked about Duke. We've talked about them being a blue blood. It's no surprise that the Blue Devils are on the top of this conversation. However, I think that's where things change with this class of 2024. And I think that's what we're starting to see more and more with college basketball is we're seeing a restructuring of what is a blue blood? And does a blue blood even matter? Do blue bloods win championships like they used to? And I think we're starting to see this pivot. And I think you can look solely, you can put the crosshairs on Columbia, Missouri, as the Mizzou Tigers have absolutely killed it this year in recruiting with Dennis Gates and associate head coach Charlton Young. And they're bringing in some absolute studs. And this is a class that has star power. This is a class that has appropriate fits. This is a class that has size. This has a class of grinders. And I've known Charlton Young for almost my entire career. And I think he's exceptional when he watches guys play. I just went to the Sun Spurs game the other day, and I was watching Devin Vassell, who grew up 5 minutes away from our headquarters at Swanee Sports Academy. He played at Peachtree Ridge High School, and this guy just signed like an $80 million contract extension. Never in a million years would I ever thought that. The only person outside of Devin Vassell and his family was Charlton Young. And he's done that so many times on identifying guys that could become pros or gorillas, as he likes to call them. And I think when you look at this class, it really embodies that type of mentality. Now, I don't know who's going to be a pro of this class, but somebody will, because that's kind of how it's done at the way that he recruits and then develop players. So let's talk about this class at Mizzou. And really, I guess if signing day is the homecoming dance, is Dennis Gates the homecoming queen today, or homecoming king? Not the queen.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I think he made a big splash in all that, and I think he's going to be a guy that keeps talking. That as long as Charlton Young's with him and that combination exists, they're going to be sweeping up recruiting for a while.
Yeah, this class I think has some star power to it. I think it's fair to say that. I don't know. I mean, if you were, let me ask you this. It's a really well-balanced class. Is there an alpha male of all these great players that are coming in, like a guy that's going to be like the kind of the leader, that's going to be their top player? Or is it, you feel like it's more of the value is in the collection of all the guys put together?
I feel like the value is the collection of the collection of the sum of its parts or whatever. But if there's a guy that emerges as this guy taking a pro leap, like maybe has that sophomore leap. I think it's Anor Boateng because man, he's got so much upside, defensive upside, great athleticism, plays with the high motor, does a lot of the stuff that you saw out of those old Florida State players that kind of took that sophomore leap and became pros after a year or two with Dennis Gates and Charlton Young, right? Like and there's a reason why when they were at Florida State, everybody would call Florida State the New Bloods. I don't know that I would call Florida State that now, but maybe we can call Missouri that because those two are recruiting like new bloods. And I think you saw their value to Florida State now that they're away from Florida State and they're at Missouri, right? They're kind of carrying that and they just transferred it to the Midwest as opposed to the South.
Yeah, I mean, the DNA of this class is a Florida State class, right? Long guys, 7-footers, physical wings, guys that will grind it out on the defensive end. I mean, there is no doubt that there is a Leonard Hamilton, Stan Jones feeling of what Florida State did when all these guys were together in Tallahassee. It's being replicated in Columbia. And listen, I would argue that Leonard Hamilton is one of the best, if not the best, modern guy when it comes to developing guys to play in the professional leagues. And it's certainly carrying over with this. I'm with you on Boateng. I think Boateng, he's a top 40 guy in this class. And every year there's outliers in recruiting rankings that are going to be one and done that are way better than what their current ranking is. And we see that every single year. I think we'll talk about it a little bit later in the show. Like, there's so many players that are in that space, maybe like that 30 to 60 range, that are great one and done guys. I think Boateng fits in this category as one of those guys. And I think it'd be great for basketball too, for Columbia to have a guy like that. I mean, Missouri basketball at its best is when college basketball is at its best.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you kind of saw glimpses of that last year. When Kansas went in there, Kansas State went in there. Just some of those bigger matchups that they had. I know they hosted some really big games there. And that crowd was electric whenever you got to see it at its best. And I think this is another class that's going to keep that going. And I think it's, you brought it up. I think this is going to be one of the themes of this cycle is sustainability, because there's not like a ton of like obvious no-brainer one and dones, at least for me, like other than Cooper Flag, Ace Bailey, and a couple of those guys at the very, very top. So it's just a matter of like who either emerges as a one and done or who takes that sophomore leap. And I can see Boateng taking that sophomore leap. I really see him playing that kind of role, kind of getting his feet wet, having a good freshman season, then really exploding as a sophomore. And I think with their kind of, if you want, let's go back to that Florida State style. A lot of it was really just pressuring you on defense and trying to get out in the open floor. And that's what Boateng does really well, is he uses athleticism to really thrive, in transition situations. So I think he's going to be a guy that really racks up a lot of his production in that regard.
Yeah. They also have probably the single biggest bully in this class physically, and Peyton Marshall, a guy that you've seen probably more than anybody in the industry, quite frankly, just given your proximity to Kell High School there in Marietta.
Yeah.
I mean, you've seen Peyton Marshall for years.
Someone who's at Norcross.
Yeah. I mean, like, I just think about guys like him when they get to college and they get on a strength and conditioning program, and then they turn into like, WWE wrestlers.
Yeah.
And we've seen Peyton Marshall, like guys, bounce off of him and just complete. Like I think about Peyton Marshall and his value at Kell. They came out to the Tarkanian Classic. I think it was the Tarkanian.
Yeah, they did. They went out to the one that was in Vegas.
Yeah, and they won a game because of his physicality, because no one could physically stop him. I mean, how would you describe if you've never seen Peyton Marshall in person? How do you physically describe him?
He's the immovable object. Like he is the Andre the Giant to the Hulk Hogan. You know what I'm saying? There's the unstoppable force versus the immovable object. He is the immovable object. Like he is just a gigantic human being. And I've seen, like you said, I've seen Peyton Marshall a lot. I've been there for, pretty much his entire high school career in some regard. And I've seen other big guys, like humongous human beings that ended up playing, football or whatever have you, go up against him. They would come out of the game being like, just shaking their heads, like, I don't know, I can't do anything. It's so big.
Yeah.
And when Peyton gets the ball and he can just make one move and go straight up, or just gets the ball and go straight up, he's unstoppable. He truly is unstoppable. Like you kind of have to throw the kitchen sink at him to slow him down a little bit, or make him operate away from the perimeter or away from the basket, and kind of get him a little bit out of his comfort zone. But when he's in that comfort zone, he is unstoppable.
When Leonard Hamilton had a guy at Florida State, Bernard James, that is a veteran. It's an unbelievable story out of Savannah. I believe he served in the Navy, if I remember correctly, and was like a 27-year-old player at Florida State. Huge guy, 6'10", 260, just an absolute bruiser of a man. And they had really good success with him. I think he got drafted in the second round, if I'm not mistaken, in the NBA.
For those who might not be aware, 6'10", 260 sounds like a big person. Peyton Marshall's 7 foot, 300 pounds.
Yeah, right. And so I could see where they pull out that type of tape where they had success with Bernard James, imply that to what Peyton Marshall can be. I think he'd be really happy. Here's why I think Peyton Marshall could be really, really good, is because of the surrounding guys. We talked about Boateng, great slasher. I mean, imagine the high ball screens to give Boateng the opportunity to get to the basket, rubbing that defender off on a guy like Peyton Marshall, who's just the oak tree. Good luck. But I think also the value of Peyton Marshall increases because you get a guy like Marcus Allen, who's coming on to the roster. Listen, he's a Miami guy. He's a Norland guy. That school has been so good to Charlton Young. I think about Zach Peacock, who played for Young at Georgia Tech, who had an exceptional career at Georgia Tech, exceptional career out in Europe. And Marcus Allen, to me, 6'6", junkyard dog, great on the offensive boards. Like I use Jay Crowder kind of like as an example for a lot of guys like in this kind of category. I'm not sure what he does great, but I sure as hell want him on my team, and I sure as hell want him on the floor. That's
such a good way of describing it. I was trying to figure out the right words to kind of put towards Marcus Allen. I think that's a really good way of describing it. He doesn't have like a specialty, like a special trait, like like Boateng, I think it's his athleticism. With Peyton
Sure.
Marshall, it's his size. With you want to go back to like the Duke conversation, Con Knipple, it's his shooting and scoring. With Marcus Allen, it's just like he's just gonna go out there and play hard and make a play. He's gonna make things happen.
He will, and I think he's the type of guy. We talked about sustainable players, right? I think what you do with him, we got a comment on here, a lot of JUCO references. I think you do get a value of a JUCO type of player in Marcus Allen that you, as for a freshman, that type of mentality coming in. And listen, give me one of those guys all day because it makes a guy like Peyton Marshall better. It gives a lot more one-on-one opportunities for a guy like Boateng. And I think when it's all said and done, Marcus Allen will go down as one of the better defenders that we've seen. Great rebounder, great plug and play. And for the type of culture that they want to put into place there at Mizzou, I think he fits that mold perfectly. And I think he's going to be a fan favorite moving forward.
I think you said the key word to this class is that this is a defensive-oriented class. I think everybody in this class is more known for their defense or defensive upside than they are known for their offense or offensive upside.
And they recruited perfectly. And I think that has to go into factor more than like the number next to a player's name, but the type of fit, right? Like what you know. Like when you're picking a dance partner, you want somebody that knows how to move properly with the way you move. And I think they've done that with this class. But I think also too, because of the players they have, you can also take some flyers on some guys. You can be patient with some guys. I think this is where Trent Burns, 7'2", comes into play out of Texas, that can step out and hit threes. I mean, quite frankly, Trent Burns doesn't have a big profile now, other than the fact that he's the player that always has the tagline that follows him that says he's going to be good, ... And he's that guy. And so I think when you have this type of roster, he's going to be good, ... fits in perfectly when you have guys that are going to be good now. And Trent Burns, you can kind of slow play that. And I could see him being a player too that, a lot of NBA teams kind of, like I had somebody ask me about him. I said, listen, he could be a kind of a bust, or he could be a guy that's shaking Adam Silver's hand as a late first-round draft pick after a couple years because someone's intrigued by him. He's a type of player that if he was coming out of Latvia, you'd probably feel really good about the upside with a guy like this. But we've seen him a lot. Played Nike EYBL, but I think Trent Burns long-term is really, really interesting. And there's low expectations for a guy like him because you got other great players coming in as well.
Yeah, you know what else? This Florida State had success with kind of lankier 7+ footers. You know what I'm saying? Like this just screams of one of the Florida State classes when they were operating at their best. Like what was it? The year COVID happened, I believe they were like one of the favorites to make a really deep run in the tournament. Like this has a lot of those kind of similar traits. And when I'm just looking at the names on this list on our document right here, I'm just like, man, this could maybe not this year, maybe not next year, the year after. Like at some point in time, this class could be like the foundational building block to what we saw out of those really, really tenacious. That's the best way I can describe them. Tenacious Florida State teams.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we'll stop using the phrase Florida State when we talk about Missouri.
I know, but it's just like you can't right now, at least you got to think about it in those terms because that was
no question
really,
about it.
Really good at that point in time.
Well, and I think to your point about building the foundation, and I think that's where Trent Burns comes into play. I think Peyton Marshall actually stays the course for a good little while. But I also think a guy like T.O. Barrett, is another player too that, he's our fifth guy that we've talked about in this class, but he's no slouch.
I think he's underrated. I think he's an underrated piece in this class. I think he's going to be a really good playmaker. I think he's going to be a really good, bigger guard that can play either guard spot, make shots, make plays for everybody else around him. I think he could be the guy that stirs the drink for the rest of this kind of recruiting class.
It reminds me, so I was at the University of Oregon covering the Ducks when Chip Kelly was there in the 2009, 2010. It was so much fun. And I think about what's interesting with football recruiting comparison to basketball is that they recruit so many guys, 20, 24 guys. And at the time, the Ducks had LaMichael James, who was like the king of college football, like a Heisman contender, Andrew Luck, all these great dudes. Unbelievable career at University of Oregon. Also there was DeAnthony Thomas, who was one of the fastest guys I've ever seen. But also there was Kenyon Barner, who ended up having a longer NFL career than both of those guys and had a really good career. And he wasn't the highly rated guy. he wasn't even the primary guy. He was like a good back. He was like a good bass player to the band. And I think about a guy like T.O. Barrett, where maybe, we're talking about all these other players, but in the background, just playing the bass, just staying on tune, staying on beat, is this guy.
Yeah.
You're like, holy crap, the bass player is unbelievable. You never really pay attention to it because the lead singer is so good, or maybe the keyboard is really good, the drummer is unbelievable, but the bass player is just back there in the corner, just plucking on the strings and never missing a beat. And I think T.O. Barrett is that type of guy. And again, it goes back to that sustainability, what we're talking about with recruiting too.
You want to know something crazy? That Missouri might not be done in this class because they're still in play for Jaden Quaintance. They're like they're in his top 4 or whatever, top 5, top 4, whatever he recently put out. I think Quaintance will end up going to Kentucky, but if you made me pick a second school, I wouldn't stray away from Missouri. That would be if they land him too. That's crazy. Like,
would you put them? I mean, that's a huge commitment. Would you put them over Duke? 6 guys. I mean, Duke would have to not get Edgecombe, or you'd have to not
get Edgecombe and Harper.
That's a juicy question.
That is a great question. I would probably still go Duke because they really loaded up towards the top of the class. You know what I'm saying? They got the number 1 guy. They got the number 14, 15 guy in Con. They got another 5-star in Isaiah Evans, and then they've got really high 4-stars. I think Harris is their lowest guy, and we have him at 65 range-ish or so. Yeah. So I think I'd still have to go Duke because all of their guys are, up in the top 75. Whereas Missouri's class will have more players, but I think that they don't have any of those.
I think it actually transitions us perfectly into this next kind of category of players, because I think sometimes when you look at recruiting rankings, a lot of times it just comes down to depth, right? Again, with football, you kind of know like our class is going to be 20 to 25 players. With basketball nowadays, you could be getting 9 guys in, or you could be getting 1 guy. And so it's like kind of hard to gauge that. In basketball, it seems like the more guys you get that are nationally ranked, it makes you a better class. But then I oftentimes wonder, do like teams that just have 3 really great players that come in there that win back-to-back conference championships and back-to-back Elite Eights, like, isn't that a great, if not better, recruiting class? And I think these are all blue blood schools for the most part that we're going to talk about here in this next category. But I think all these schools that we're about to dive into kind of fall into this category, which I do want to kind of, I think we're going to talk about North Carolina, Kansas, Miami, and Arizona in this next segment here. And I think all those classes, there's a lot of comparable classes they have coming in. All of them have 3 guys coming in. All of them have 3 impact guys coming in. I know I kind of want to get into that. Let's start with North Carolina. My biggest question is, North Carolina back? Like, are they back? Like, it feels like North Carolina, as the Roy Williams era kind of came to a close, I feel like we started to see him kind of like, you know what? I just want guys that I don't, and I'm not saying this in a negative way. I want to get guys that I don't have to, how do I say this? I don't want like high
maintenance guys. You want guys that you can build with, right?
I'm not trying to say it in a negative way, but like guys that I can just coach and like go out. And Hubert Davis, listen, he got there in 2021, but back-to-back seasons, we've seen him pull in some pretty dang good players. More importantly, when I think about North Carolina guards, I think about old school days when Dean Smith was going up, even before him, when McGuire was going up to North Carolina or to New York and getting great players. I look at Kenny Smith. I look at all these players from New York. Back-to-back years, they've gone up to the Northeast and gotten great guards. Elliot Cadu, and now with Ian Jackson. And I think we're starting to see this theme kind of
get RJ back. Davis, even before
that. RJ Davis, yeah, certainly RJ Davis. Yeah, I forgot about RJ. So, I mean, you get those guys. And on top of that, you had a local kid in Drake Powell.
Yeah.
The big man in James Brown. I mean, this class is pretty damn good.
Yeah.
And Ian Jackson is as good as this class is 2024 at the top. Ian Jackson, there's days where sometimes I thought he was the number 1 guy. This is before Cooper Flagg had reclassified.
But for sure.
I mean, Ian Jackson's got that type of star power. Like, oh my God, this guy's phenomenal.
He's got a really big personality. He looks like he's had fun when he's playing basketball. Does that?
Yeah.
And like, I think there is something to be said for that because you're going to be playing a lot of high level, high impact games. You're, for God's sake, you're playing Duke Carolina rivalry twice a year at least. You know what I'm saying? So you've got to be able to relish those big moments. You got to really be able to kind of have fun in those big moments in order to kind of avoid from crumbling under the pressure. You know what I'm saying? I think Ian Jackson is that guy that's just going to go out there and do his thing. He's going to be able to cook.
All conference level guy right out of the gate as a freshman?
In the conversation, for sure. Like,
yeah.
I mean, obviously, like with the way that the sport is trending right now, I would kind of, I don't want to place any of those kind of high expectations on younger guys, especially because, you know, transfer portal, everybody's trending older. So maybe it's just age wins out, but they're certainly going to be in the conversation.
I don't know if Elliot Cadu will stick around for a sophomore year. I would imagine he probably would, but man, I would love to see those two guys play together in the backcourt.
That would be awesome.
It would be absolutely scary to think about what they could be down the road.
I'd be a really big fan.
Like, it reminds me a lot of those days where, you know, Rashad McCants and like those really fun Carolina teams from back in, you know, the turn of the century. I really liked a lot. You know, Drake Powell's a player too. North Carolina's 2024 class was unbelievable, historic, really. You know, our guy Justin Byerly, when we saw this group coming up maybe 3 years ago, in a very Justin Byerly way, would be like, JY, this class got a chance to be real special, man.
Yeah.
And not surprisingly, they snatched up one of the best guys in the state of North Carolina. Drake Powell, you know, we talked about Ian Jackson. There's such star power there. But Drake Powell, quite frankly, I think has got equal level star power coming in as well.
100%. I think both these guys have, I mean, it's not crazy to say, but both these guys have one and done potential. They both have, you know, all ACC level potential in some regard, right? I think Drake Powell could be an all league impact defender right away. I think Ian Jackson can be an all league offensive player right away. Man, yeah, I think Drake Powell is kind of flying under the radar in this class nationally, just in general. But he's got all the potential in the world. I think that 1-2 punch is one of the best 1-2 combinations in the class in general.
It's special, man. It's a special group. It really is. I think I like what you said about the defensive end, because I think you're right. Like, when I think about North Carolina, and I don't mean this in a negative way, I just don't think of them being a defensive school. I think them.
I get it.
I want to watch the points. I want to watch these guys.
Yo, they're the school that they're going to outscore you by. Our defense is going to be us running up the floor and making you tired. You know, essentially. Like,
yeah. I think Ian Jackson, let me go back to him. It adds a cool factor to them that I think they've always had, right? But like, yeah, there's a swagger to Ian Jackson that's just a little different.
For sure. I mean, just like, I don't know, I could just picture him in that Carolina blue, like in a really big time matchup. The building's rocking. His just electric personality is kind of shining through, and it's just like it has that. Yeah, like you said, Carolina has always had a cool factor to it, and like he's one of those guys that can really bring that back in a prominent way. Not to say that it went anywhere to necessarily, but like he's a guy that can really make it shine through, like it did when I was younger, and kind of being captivated by that color scheme and all that stuff.
Do you remember the Gerald Henderson, Tyler Hansborough incident, the forearm across the nose?
Yes, I have that picture saved in my phone just to kind of bring up every once in a while.
Do you really? Yeah. You're like on the train and you're like, oh, I'm gonna look at that photo. Like, what do you?
It's just like sometimes it'll come, like I have some friends that are close to me that are North Carolina fans, so sometimes I'll just like, if you know, if the Duke game's getting ready to come up, I'll just send that to them, be like, trying to get them hyped up and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, the reason I bring that up, I could see on the opposite end that Cooper Flagg, Ian Jackson, like not that I think Gerald Henderson and Tyler Hansborough were like vicious rivals and talked a lot of shit back and forth, but I could see Ian Jackson and Cooper Flagg.
Oh, I could see that too. That'd be really electric.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that is.
I'm going to inject a small little anecdote. The one time I went to Paris, I went to the Eiffel Tower, and there was a guy there that was walking past that was literally head to toe in Carolina blue. Like he had a Carolina baseball jersey on, a Carolina hat on, a pair of Carolina basketball shorts, and a pair of Carolina Jordans on. So I couldn't escape Carolina even across the world.
In my days when I used to play pickup basketball, but believe it or not, true story, there was a guy that he was probably my age now, like you know, older, over the mid 40s line, that would wear Florida Gator gear, the jersey, the shorts, team shoes, headband.
Tuck it in.
Yeah, and you're just like, oh God, this guy. And he had the sharpest elbows. He was that guy. And he was a full send on the uniform. So maybe it was him. Maybe he just
was he the Gerald Henderson to your Tyler Hansborough?
It was in that era. Yeah, it was in that era. That's probably the last time I played pickup basketball as well. James Brown, not of Augusta, Georgia fame, but James Brown is also another guy that kind of fits the mold of the of the type of big man that we've seen, big physical guy.
I like him for Carolina. I think he's going to be a guy that can run that secondary break really well. It gets the ball, really advances it, can really get up the floor. I think he's a really good fit. It's maybe an under the radar fit because he's like 75-ish kind of player. He's not going to be the guy that really blows the doors off of a recruiting class, but he's a guy that really fits the program and fits the way they play. Go watch film on James Brown, and you'll kind of see what I'm talking about. He's a guy that really initiates that secondary break well.
Yeah, really good 3-man class. Again, kind of what we're seeing here for these next classes. Let's move it on to Kansas. Flory Badunga, arguably the best big man that there is in this class. I mean, you could make him an argument between him and Ace Bailey. Is Ace a big or a wing? I don't know. Marquise Passmore and LeBaron Phelan. Josh, is this the best big three of all the classes coming in to the country?
It certainly might be. Like, it's in the conversation. We obviously really big fan of this class. I mean, two of the guys, Marquise and LeBaron, we've seen a ton over the years. Yeah. Them just being in our geographic space, we've gotten to see them a lot. Maybe that colors it a little bit. Maybe it's just our familiarity with them. But yeah, really, really love what Bill Self did with this class.
Yeah, I think for me, I think this is my favorite trio, honestly. I think all three guys are pros. I really do. I think all three guys are going to be playing in the NBA at some category of their life. Flory Badunga defensively gives you a guy that, I think contends for all defensive, Big 12 right out of the gate as a freshman, blocks a ton of shots, starts breaks. Listen, we know big guys thrive at the University of Kansas.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
He's a rebounding machine. He's going to limit you to one shot, and if you even get that one shot over him blocking it, you know what I'm saying? And then you pair him with these two guards, or, Marquise is a wing and LeBaron's a guard, but you pair him with these two perimeter players who are at their best in transition. Flory gets the rebound, he gets the block, whatever, throws it out, boom. Let LeBaron, let Marquise go.
The more I watch Marquise and the more I watch pro basketball, the more I think his game is so well designed for the next level that I think when it's all said and done with this 2024 class, that I could see us moving Passmore up even more because of what he does, and what he brings to the table. I'm blown away by what Marquise Passmore can be when it's all said and done. I think he's a superstar. I think he's got superstar potential.
Yeah. Really. Hey man, we've been seeing it for years. I remember the first time I saw him was at one of our camps, and Byerly pointed him out to me and said, "Hey, check this guy out. Let me know what you think." And I was like, "Oh my God. How is he not on any kind of national radars?" And then, within the next year, he kind of pop, started to kind of blow up a little bit. And I think his ascension is still going.
And LeBaron Phelan, there's some, I remember Devontae Graham. Devontae Graham kind of has a, no, yes, kind of quality to him, where I think Phelan has a really similar quality to him. Don't dribble in there. Don't take that shot. Okay, good shot. Let's go. He's that type of guy. There's a high level ability to get the ball in the bucket. He's calmed that down a little bit since he's, Mobile, Alabama guy. We've seen him a ton, like you said, at our Bama Jam, at our different Alabama events. To me, I think Phelan, as much as we talk about KU being a big man school, I think about guards, man. I think about all the great electric guards that Bill Self has had in his career. I think Phelan is just kind of falls in that lineage of guys that are going to have more success there. And you put him with Passmore, man, I can't wait, man.
He's big. He's big for the position too. He's legit 6'4", plays both guard spots. You want him to have the ball in his hand. I think there is something to be said for the cohesiveness that him and Marquise are already going to have, because they played. I mean, they spent the entire summer together, going with playing with Team Thad, playing on. They went to all the elite camps you could ever imagine. They were there. I was there. I saw them there. They were together the entire time. They have this, from what I could tell, they're a very cohesive unit, and I think that's going to really translate well when they get to Kansas.
Can we get them a reality show? I think that would be a reality show I would watch.
Yeah, I'd watch you guys. They could make a Instagram, TikTok kind of show based off of that.
Are there shows for that?
There is now. Oh, you make it. There doesn't have to be it already. The market's open.
I like it. Maybe. Come on, guys, put it into action. But I'm going hot take. I think Passmore is a guy that finds a place in the NBA that really kind of takes off. Mikal Bridges, that type of guy. Like defensively, obviously, Mikal Bridges is a different type of dude, but that shooting ability that he brings to the table with that size, I could see Marquise Passmore being a dude that really shines at KU and moves on to the pros. I'm really excited about him. And again, I feel like we're kind of breezing past Flory Badunga at number 4 overall player in our player rankings. But KU's had so many guys. Is he the best big man at KU since who? Andrew Wiggins was our number 1 guy coming out of the industry.
No, you're good. I was going to say Hunter Dickinson's pretty good, but
Hunter Dickinson's pretty good with different style. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean, but yeah.
He'll be fine.
Hey man,
That's our hot take evaluation. He'll be fine. He'll be good.
Yeah, I've never.
That's what you're in for. That's why you're watching an hour into the live stream, is to hear us say, Floyd Badunga, number 4 overall player, he's going to be fine. He's
pretty good.
The next 3 group, class of 3 guys, University of Miami. I don't think there's any doubt that we love this class. I mean, we absolutely love this class. We love this backcourt. Jaleel Bethea, Austin Schwartz, and Isaiah Johnson. Forgive me, man, if I mispronounce your name, out of Minnesota, who I do want to talk about him in a second. But Jaleel Bethea and Austin Schwartz, best backcourt in this class. I don't know. I mean, it's up there. It's a top 5 backcourt coming into college basketball. Is Austin Schwartz though? I feel like Austin Schwartz has a chance to go down depending on how long he stays, as an all-time guy, Jim Larinaga guy.
I could see that. I mean, they just came off a streak of a guy like Isaiah Wong, who became an all-time guy, right? And their recent success has been built on their guards and their guards' ability to go get a bucket when they need to go get a bucket. And I think Jaleel Bethea and Austin Schwartz are 2 guys that can go out there and get you a bucket. So this really plays into how well Miami's at least those 2 guys for sure play into how Miami has succeeded within the last 3 to 4 years.
We need to have an NBA Jam tournament style with Drake Powell and Ian Jackson, Marquise Passmore, LeBaron Phelan, and Jaleel Bethea, Austin Schwartz, and see who comes out on top.
That'd be pretty fun. Maybe we can get some kind of developer to make that game for us.
I mean, maybe we should just have it happen in the summertime at some point.
Well, we do run events, right? So
we do run events. That's what I've been told. We run events. Nevertheless, so Austin Schwartz, I think, has a chance, all conference level potential. Jaleel Bethea, we have him rated higher. I mean, Jaleel Bethea, I feel like his highest highs are, who Jaleel Bethea reminds me of? He reminds me of the emotional roller coaster of any guard that's played for Bruce Pearl.
Sure.
You're like, holy crap, that dude's amazing. And then 3 possessions later, you give me an ulcer. But I'd rather have that type of player, because I know that he's going to be trying to go out there and compete. And I feel like Jaleel Bethea, when he's at his very best, is an unbelievable player that's going to go on the road in the ACC and pick up a huge win on the road. And I think when you look at these classes, Duke's loaded up, North Carolina's loaded up. We've got this ACC restructuring a little bit. Well, not too much, but or if any. No, nothing on that squad. Sorry, I'm just always thinking about.
Are you talking about conference realignment?
Yeah, but I feel like this group coming into Miami, they're a group that goes on the road and that steals an ACC road win.
Yeah, hell yeah, absolutely. I think these 2 guys or at least, these 3 guys, but I'm more familiar with Schwartz and Bethea. They are those kind of guys what was that class, the Angel Rodriguez group that went into Duke and beat the Jaleel team. I think this is that kind of group that goes in there and beats the Cooper Flag kind of team in camera and kind of really makes a statement in doing so.
Wasn't ready for an Angel Rodriguez reference today. Wasn't ready for it. I like it. I'm here for it.
Welcome to the world of CrossCheck.
I like it. Nice job. Isaiah Johnson, I think he's a player that we didn't really see a lot of. I have a feeling he's probably better than we realize. And again, Miami is a program that does such a great job of developing guys. Our next trio of guys in these great threesomes of teams, North Carolina, Kansas, Miami, as we're following up with another blue blood and Tommy Lloyd at the University of Arizona. Unbelievable class. Very West Coast centric. Carter Bryant from Southern California. Jamari Phillips. What's that?
Teammate centric.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All these guys play together on travel ball. Jamari Phillips, who's now at AZ Compass Prep, right down the road from where I'm at now, and then Emmanuel Stephen, who's on the other side of Phoenix at Dream City Christian. But man, it's funny. Tommy Lloyd and his staff has done such a great job of recruiting international guys that maybe we kind of lose sight that this is still the University of Arizona, and they can go out there and get dudes whenever they want to go get dudes out here on the West Coast. And man, they got 3 exceptional guys. So Carter Bryant, there's some Chris Murray, some Keegan Murray value there for me with him. I think
Also Chris Murray. Yeah.
Sure. I think Keegan's the better of the Murray brothers. But Carter Bryant, can step out, can shoot. I think he probably thinks he's more of a 3 than he is a 4. I think in today's game, he's kind of like that modern day, whatever you want to call it, the 4-3, 3-4. Jamari Phillips, when he wants to go out there and score, he could lead the Pac-12, the old Pac-12, in scoring. Now is the Big 12. In fact, that now means that this group is going to be playing Kansas. So now you've got that element, which is a lot of fun. So Jamari Phillips playing those guys, Passmore and Phelan is really exceptional.
Yeah, but you're bearing the lead there. That's not even
as I was getting down the list.
Close to being the first battle on that. That's Emmanuel Stephen, Floyd Badunga.
Yeah. Well, why? Why?
There are 2 massive human beings going to go at it. Are you kidding me? That's like those Japanese kaiju movies where it's like Godzilla versus Godzilla versus King Kong right there. That's going to be massive. Neither of those guys is going to want to let the other one score. They're both going to try and grab every rebound. That's going to be a blast. I always tell this anecdote, but
yeah,
like recent time I saw Emmanuel Stephen, he had 14 blocks in a game. And, Floyd Badunga, same kind of guy, right? He's a guy that's just going to go out there and really protect the rim. So that battle is going to be a rock fight. Like, that is going to be scary.
Emmanuel Stephen, the first time I saw him, I literally thought it was Bismack Biyombo of the NBA walking through. Like legitimate. I was like, man.
I wonder who he is here to see.
Yeah, right. Like I was like, why is BMAC here, right? Who was playing for the Suns, and anyways. But Emmanuel Stephen is a massive dude, 7-footer, probably one of the most impressive eye-catching prospects I've seen in like the last 15 years. Like legitimately, stop you in your tracks as you're walking like at a travel event. You see this kid walking by, you're like, where's he going? I want to go watch him play. And he's gotten so much better over the last 12 months that I'm really excited. It's like Christian Coloco got so much better. I'm really interested to see what happens with Emmanuel Stephen when he gets down there to Tucson. And how is Tommy Lloyd and his staff going to make him better? But I think with all three of these guys have significant skill impact they bring to the table. Carter Bryant can really super versatile guy, stretch a floor, pro level game. Jamari Phillips can absolutely light up a scorebook. And then I think Emmanuel Stephen, 12 months from now, 18 months from now, 24 months from now, like this dude should be a guy that's playing the NBA because of his size, but also because he's gotten a lot better along the way.
Yeah. I think the Emmanuel Stephen Carter Bryant combination could be really reminiscent of like maybe not the same exact way, but last year they played Omar Ballo and I'm blanking on him. The other big guy, the European. They played them together a lot, and they really kind of had them really kind of dominate throughout the Pac-12 and throughout the non-conference season. I think it's a little bit different, but Emmanuel Stephen, Carter Bryant can kind of play a similar role where they really dominate the glass because Carter Bryant's an exceptional rebounder. Emmanuel Stephen obviously has brought up all of his upside around the basket. They can really dominate the glass. They can really get out there and run the open floor, and they're going to be able to really finish around the rim. So I think that combination really plays into how Tommy Lloyd has shown that he wants to play at Arizona.
I think my question is, how long do each of these guys stick around in Tucson? Like, I think Carter Bryant is a one and done regardless.
Yeah, I think Jamari Phillips and Emmanuel Stephen might be a little bit more sustainable, but I could see one of them going after their sophomore year and maybe one of them sticking around a little bit longer. But I think you're right. Carter Bryant's one and done. The other two are maybe two and done at least, but they will be done at some point.
Yeah, I mean, Emmanuel Stephen's so big and so unique that I think that value makes him a little bit. He's going to be the same type of guy, whether he's a freshman or a junior, when he leaves because of the size. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the skill needs to come with it. But Jamari Phillips, to me, it's the shot selection. I think as he kind of grows up there in Tucson with the tutelage of Lloyd and his great coaching staff, I think they're going to make him a really terrific player. That guy can go out there and get buckets. I'll be curious to see, to your point, like how long does he stick around?
He's the guy that I always think about the sophomore leap, and I think he's a guy that can really take him eventually. I think that's a really real kind of The two and done, I think, is a really real kind of thing to look at because of, some people just get their feet wet a little bit and then really explode onto the scene the next year. And I think Jamar Phillips is a guy that could do that.
We are over an hour into our live stream here. Just a reset. I'm Justin Young. He's Josh Tech with HoopSeen.com. We appreciate you watching. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe. If you're watching this on X, make sure you hit the repost button or reshare or whatever we're calling that nowadays. We appreciate you coming on. We've never done a live show before. We've always done recorded shows, but we're National Signing Day. We thought this would be a good opportunity to get in here and talk with you guys about what we see fit so far. We've talked about Duke. We've talked about Mizzou. We've talked about North Carolina, Kansas, Miami, Arizona. Up to this point, we've got some great schools coming up here in our further conversation as we're looking at some of our favorite classes here in the class of 2024. As we're doing this, let me just kind of double check and make sure no one's committed or signed.
Oh, yeah. I guess we should do that, huh?
Throughout the course of this show. I mean, it is the day. We saw Ja'Kai Howard make his decision earlier with Auburn, Nas Cunningham yesterday for Alabama, two big ones. Arizona State obviously loaded up. Don't see anything just on a quick view over.
I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on and say that it's fishy that somebody from Alabama committed and then the next day somebody committed to Auburn.
I do love it.
There's something not right about that. So there's like some kind of higher power that made that happen. I feel like that just doesn't happen.
I do love that. All right. Let's talk about Rutgers because, again, there is a theme in this year's class that we've talked about the Blue Bloods. I think Miami, the way they've been playing, they can be put in that category. But let me rewind it real quick. Of those four classes, those trios that we've talked about.
Sure.
If you're playing in the NCAA tournament, who are you rocking with? Kansas, North Carolina, Miami, Arizona.
My gut would
That's a tough question. That is a really, really tough question.
My gut would send me towards Miami because I feel like guards really win out in the NCAA tournament. But my brain almost thinks Kansas because they have the two guards. They have the two, backcourt players. Rakis is a wing. LeBaron, plays either guard spot. But then they also have Flory because, I need someone to give me those boards. I need someone to protect the rim. And they also have the two electric guards. So maybe I'll go Kansas. But it's really hard to go against that Swartz Bethea backcourt. And I'm gonna go Kansas. I'm not gonna flip flop. I'm gonna go brain over gut.
Okay. I'm stuck. I actually think this is the hardest question probably of the entire.
And then here's the thing: is like you can. It wouldn't take much convincing at all for someone to be like, "What about Arizona?" Because then it'd be like,
That's where my head's at.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, I'm like, you know what? Ian Jackson just has that dude mentality.
Well, and Drake Powell can just lock somebody up, and he's also a good scorer. So, like,
totally agree.
That's truly like a befuddling.
Okay, if you're watching this, put it in our comments. Okay, either YouTube or X or both. How would you rank those four classes? North Carolina, Kansas, Miami, Arizona. If you're in March
through the NCAA tournament,
Yep, exactly. If your tournament life was on the line, who's going the furthest in March Madness? North Carolina, Kansas, Miami, Arizona.
Picking Kansas. I could see Flory locking up a big block or something like that, or I could see Rakis making a high flying dunk that really gets changes some momentum. I could see LeBaron just making a play. I'm going Kansas.
You made me pivot. I think I rock with Miami. Yeah, I think I rock with Miami.
Oh boy, that's not hard to convince me either, man. We just saw Isaiah Wong and Nigel Pack and all of them lead them to the Final Four. So
I think Austin Schwartz is really special, man. I think he's really special. I think he's just barely scratching the surface.
And here's the thing: Joel Bethea can go on one of those heaters that we saw Caleb Love go on for North Carolina when they took him to the championship game. He can go on one of those kind of heaters that really carries a team to. I guess where is it going to be at Phoenix this year? And take him to Phoenix. Or I don't know where it's going to be at next year, but
yeah, they won't be there. Yeah, these guys will still be in high school when it happens. Okay, man. Listen, Rutgers, all-time great class already.
Oh hell yeah.
Ace Bailey, a guy, again, you've seen him so much over the last 3 years. The number 2 overall player. I would argue before Cooper Flagg came in, we've talked about this. We've talked about it so much.
I've been writing about this for over a year.
Yeah, the upside is there. Could be the number one guy in the country. Certainly is like with Brandon Miller. Let's use him as an example. Now, I don't think his game is like Brandon Miller, but Brandon Miller, I think anybody that watched him knew he was going to be really good. Okay, and I think when you look at the rookies so far, like 2 weeks in the NBA season, Brandon Miller is off to an unbelievable start on a really, really bad team. And I think about with Ace Bailey, Brandon Miller was the same way. Like, what guy are we going to get? He turned out to be a superstar.
Yeah.
An absolute superstar. I think Ace Bailey has that same type of trajectory, may have the same type of passport that Brandon Miller has on his basketball journey, where he could be that kind of guy. And then when you mix in this class, I mean, it's a really good class. But my question is this a flash in the pan for Rutgers? Is this something that we could see being sustainable? If Dylan Harper ends up going there, it's an all-time class. It's the all-time best class in Rutgers history, because already you've got Ace Bailey, who's the best player that's ever committed to Rutgers. Okay. That Powder Springs, Georgia to Piscataway, New Jersey connection is in play here. Okay. You bet you didn't see that coming on your bingo card. But I do wonder, like, is this a sustainable, or is this something now where Ace Bailey goes there? Or is this more like Anthony Edwards going to Georgia, where you're just like, okay, that's just where he wants to go to school and, kind of move on and nothing really think twice about it. But I guess that's all just rhetorical. But
I would probably, at this point, I would go with the latter, because you just got to show me that you can do it more than once. But I wouldn't be mad if it was the standard, because it's just fun to see different teams kind of take over and have success. Steve Pikiell's really built a really good program over there. I know they started their season auspiciously, but he still built a really good program over there, and I don't know that it's going to really carry on in terms of recruiting, but I think it's going to carry on in terms of them being a solid team.
Okay, what do you think about the Brandon Miller, Ace Bailey kind of parallel there?
I can see it. Yeah, I like it. I think it's apt. They both are skilled. They both have superstar potential. I mean, if Ace Bailey hits like we think he's going to hit, he could be. I mean, the sky's the limit for him. He's just got so much potential.
He's a player that, like, I hear this thing about, it's a league pass team in the NBA. Ace Bailey, like, if I'm a casual watcher, or if I'm an NBA guy that just casually watches college basketball, I want to find Rutgers on the TV to go watch them play because of Ace Bailey. Like, there is a wow potential with him that very few guys. I would even argue that his wow potential is the very best in this class.
I would 100% agree with that. I've done the Ace Bailey. What you call it? The league pass.
Yeah,
I've done that in person. Where all right, Ace Bailey's playing. I'm gonna go watch him.
That's fair. You totally have. In fact, if you can go back and watch the tape of Ace Bailey and Darian Reed at Holiday Hoopsgiving for like the first half, it's some of the best prep basketball.
That was awesome.
So hyped about that.
I believe that because Ace was originally from the Chattanooga area, and
yes, you're right.
McEachern, and he spent that first part of his first year at McEachern injured, and I believe his first game was at the start of the new year, whatever year that would have been. Maybe 2022 against Pebblebrook, and I was at that game.
I think
that was his very first game, at least in Georgia, against Pebblebrook, which is, if you don't know, that's a hell of a program, very successful. And I believe probably at halftime I texted you something along the lines.
I think you did. Now that you're saying this, recounting the story, I do remember this now.
So I probably sent 100 texts that day, being like, "Holy hell, this guy is the real deal."
It's like my wife when I go shopping. I just getting pampered, just getting hammered with text messages to go pick something else. All right. Well, the rest of this class is really good. Lathan Somerville, big guy. I think he fits the Big Ten. Bryce Dortch, Dylan Grant, really good class. I think.
What I like about this group right here is Ace Bailey's pushing 6'10". Lathan Somerville's 6'9". Bryce Dortch is 6'8". Dylan Grant 6'7". Like that's not a small group of guys right there. They got a lot of size to combat the size of the Big Ten. So, what
do you think about guys like that go off brand, right? That go to Rutgers, that go to Georgia, that kind of go to schools that are the road less traveled, those high level guys, right? Like, I mean, I feel like it's becoming more and more normal, where in years past you just kind of like, okay, well, he's going to go to one of these 6 schools In years past, Ace Bailey's a Kentucky Wildcat.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, like you said, like I probably said earlier in the broadcast, where I would lean Duke for the remaining two prospects, Dylan Harper and BJ Edgecombe, just because it's Duke, So I think that really plays into this. And I really do love guys going off, like you said, off the beaten path, like Cody Williams going to Colorado last year, or Isaiah Collier going to USC. We didn't see any of those high-level guys in the 23 class go to necessarily like a lot of the, more bluer of bloods. I think because a couple of these guys you see kind of going off the beaten path, and I really appreciate that as a guy that also tends to go off the beaten path sometimes.
So you're a Rutgers commit, is what you're saying?
Yeah, sure, I could commit to Rutgers.
What school? Okay, all right. Let's go off the beaten path a little.
You already know which school I would commit to, but
yeah, but they're a power. Like Louisville's a power.
Oh, I know, but like
they may not be for much. No, I'm kidding. Like
Bellarmine.
What? Bellarmine? Okay.
Big Scott Davenport fan. I got a signed basketball with Scott Davenport in my room right there, and it's also in Louisville. So
sorry, I got a sub 1-year-old son that.
No, you're thinking about Louisville basketball right now, and
I was thinking about Louisville basketball.
It'd
be more tears than a yawn, I think, is what it would be.
But hey, number 11 football team. So
okay. I mean, I gotta go Kennesaw State. I gotta keep it up.
I respect that. I could also go Georgia State because I did graduate from there. So
I like that. Shout out Anton Petway who made his way out of an elevator. Did you see this? Got stuck in an elevator before he coached his first ever game at Kennesaw State for 30 minutes there. I'm not sure.
Win, right?
Huh?
They got the win, so maybe he should get stuck in the elevator more often.
I love it. I saw this little stat. It was like stuck in an elevator for 30 minutes. Like that was his stat under his name. I was like, that needs to be screenshotted and saved forever. But certainly funny to see last night as we opened things up. They won by 30. Is that what you said?
I don't know if they won by 30. I know they won, but that means he gets stuck in the elevator more like before every game now until it doesn't work.
I thought it was hilarious. Dan McDonald, you got to do a better job over there at KSU. You got to make sure your boss can't get trapped in the elevator, man. That's got to be on your business card now moving forward. Elevator Prevention Program, Director of Elevator Prevention. I don't know. It sounds funny in my head.
Or make sure he gets stuck in there because if you win one game.
Well, he coached the game. He just was like 5 minutes late to the game.
Oh, no. I'm just saying, like, whatever mojo works for you. Wear the same underwear, get stuck in the same elevator.
I feel like we're going off the rails. You can definitely tell that we're an hour and 20 minutes into the live stream. Is Colorado the most underrated recruiting program in the country right now, Josh Tech?
Well, did you just hear me a few minutes ago say they got Cody Williams, who's the top 5 guy in the class of 2023? So, yes, I do think that they are riding some momentum that is slept on right now. They are recruiting really well.
And this is even coming off the hills where I thought for sure Trent Perry was going to be the guy. We're going to talk about him in a second. But this class, I think when you really look at it, listen, we talked about Missouri adding 7-footers. Colorado is also doing that. 2 big guys in Sebastian Ranick and Dorian
Onwuchekwa.
Thank you. You knew it was coming. I think they have 2 guys that I think are real major sleepers. Andrew Crawford, a big guard, tremendous player from Kansas, and then Felix
Cazares.
There you go. A Canadian big-time shooter. The more film I watch of him, the more I'm like, there's the next sleeper from the University of Colorado.
Yeah, Felix is a guy that's completely off my radar. I hadn't seen him very much, so I wanted to lean on you for that guy. And you're the West Coast guy, so.
Well, you can shoot. You can absolutely shoot. And we've seen players that can shoot that have played at Colorado that have had success. Tad Boyle, to me, if I was a player, if I was serious about development, and I would just love to go to Colorado. I think they're way sexier of a program than their football program. They actually have some substance to it. They've got some players. They've got great coaching. And I think there's a lot of things that you want to like about this class. Andrew Crawford, to me, in the old Pac-12 would have been a guy that I think makes a real splash. I see your brain moving over there. What's going on?
Are they in the Big 12 now?
In the Big 12, yeah.
Oh, they're back in the Big 12. Okay.
Big 12.
It's going to take me a while to get this.
Dude, I have to Google every single time. But I really like this class a lot. I still think that there's some value when you go to a school that develops players. And I think when you look at what they've done, their proof is in the pudding. They've got so many players that have come there that had a lower reputation that have left. Cody Williams is really the outlier, right? Like a guy that, a guy could be the number one pick on the draft. We'll see if that changes things. But Colorado, man, they've put out some guys over the years. I mean, whether it's Tad Boyle or just their program, Derek White, right? Like Kai Simpson's been tremendous there. Originally going to go to Arizona. I mean, they've got some players there that have developed. Of these 4 guys, I think 2 of them are going to hit really, really big.
And if you want to talk about like in the immediate for Colorado, I think they are just a generally undervalued program going into this season that we just started too. I think they could have a really good year. I think that could really bode well for them moving forward as they kind of keep building out these really nice little classes that kind of go under the radar and they keep building momentum behind the scenes. How mad do you think Matt Painter was that Tad Boyle landed a 7-footer?
I think Matt Painter's fine.
He got Daniel Jacobson who's 7'3", but that came after Colorado landed Sebastian Rannick, and I thought that at that point in time, Matt Painter was out there just flipping the bird over to the West Coast, being like, "You took my 7-footer."
No, I think Matt is going to be just fine. It came out. I mean, Daniel Jacobson, if I remember right, is a New Mexico native that's now up at Brewster Academy.
Yeah,
it really is kind of interesting. Like he keeps.
Yeah. But he got his guy, but before then he was.
Cannon Catchings is his guy. I mean, like that's where you got to start. Like that's your dude. And they got another guy, big guy, Raleigh Burgess as well. So
they have a good class, but
if you are a 7-footer that has any worth of skill, you've got to know that Purdue is going to be coming knocking on your door.
They're at least going to watch.
That's a good way of putting it. Cannon Cat. Let me go back to Cannon Catchings for a second, though.
We just transition over to Purdue.
Perfect transition. Neither one of us really have a great feel for him, and he might be way better than we realize.
I think that he is a guy that has one and done potential. I think he might be. I have to think about it. I have to look through. This is just going off the top of my head. So if you think of someone that I'm missing, he might be, other than Jaden Ivey, one of the few guys that goes into Purdue with one and done expectations, because Purdue doesn't normally recruit like that, at least from off the top of my head, other than Jaden Ivey, who might not have even gone in, has this guy's going to be a one and done kind of guy. He might have just played his way in there. But I think Cannon Catchings is a guy that could reasonably have one and done expectations. He's got to live up to that, but he's certainly got the tools to get there.
And we know that Painter and his staff are going to develop him and develop the rest of these guys and make them into really great college basketball players. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I don't think Matt Painter and his staff do. I don't think they have any misses. I really don't. I think they really do a great job there. There's a reason why it's had sustained success.
And they do a really good job at retaining guys even throughout the transfer portal era. I know a couple guys here and there have dipped out to other places, but they've done a really good job.
Yeah. No, that's actually statistically correct. Like they're one of the few schools that don't lose guys. They retain.
Yeah. And I think Villanova's probably the other one, right? Like I would imagine.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really important stat. As we kind of round things up, I'm just kind of looking at our clock. I'm kind of thinking about the rest of our show. Let's talk about 3 more schools real quick. And I think we'll take a break in our live stream. We'll come back. We're going to talk about 4 big storylines. We're going to get into like a draft, like our favorite fits, as we talked about fits. We're going to do that in our next live stream. We'll probably do that. We'll talk about time. I think we wrap up here. But let's talk about 3 more classes, Josh. Let's kind of wrap things up here for this segment of our live stream. We've got TCU, we've got Auburn, and we've got USC that we want to talk about. Let's start with USC because we talked about Trent Perry. I thought for sure that he was going to be a Colorado guy.
I wish I had a Trent Perry little flag because I think you and I are both big Trent Perry guys.
Massive. It's an interesting time at USC because now you're everyone wants to talk about being the Bronny James era, and that's fine. But it's the Isaiah Collier year, okay?
Did you all watch him in his first game? Been telling you about Isaiah Collier.
I mean, we've been saying it. You've been saying it more than anybody. Anybody that's not in the Collier family, I think Josh Tech is on that. Is the engineer of that train. But USC, I think they added a class of guys that are going to stick around. I really do. I think this is a really good class. 3 really skilled guys, 3 guys that know how to play basketball. Trent Perry being that guy that I think his career at Harvard Westlake, I think could mirror what his career is going to be at USC, where he comes in as a freshman, has a very specific role, not asking him to do too much, that kind of gets in there, has a couple of games where, like, who's that guy? You pay attention. And then every year it gets better and better and better. And by the time it's all said and done, he's an All-American. He's a guy that's being a part of a team that's won 25 games. And listen, we've seen Andy Enfield do an unbelievable job with guards like him in his career. Andy Enfield, I mean, let's not forget, the guy comes from an NBA background. He's been in the college for so long, but he understands that type of player. And that's where Andy kind of comes through. I love Trent Perry for this team because I think he can be a star in a variety of roles, a star that plays his role as a freshman. But when it's all said and done, he's going to be the face of this program, I think, when he graduates there as a Trojan. But then you have Liam Campbell, a Southern California guy that's now up in my favorite basketball state in the country, which is what? Idaho. Thank you, Liam Campbell, a big shot maker. I mean, a big shot maker. I love Liam Campbell off the bounce. So much fun to watch. And then Brody Kozlowski out of Utah, big tough guy. I saw him last year. In fact, I'm headed back up to Utah.
That's like your second favorite place. I would say the Justin Young rankings are Idaho, Utah, and then Georgia. And then maybe Georgia's higher, but
Georgia will always be, I think, grandfathered in as my number one.
No,
from views, Utah is pretty awesome, man. You know, I'm a big outdoor guy, so I do love Utah. I love getting those.
I need to get out there at some point in time. I've never spent enough time.
It's incredible. Well, my kids, you know, my kids, I've got some of my kids there. Shout out Utah State, the Ags.
That's right. Yo, straight up.
We're going to talk about them this week, too. Believe me.
We're some Mountain West heads over here.
We are. What is even that league anymore? I guess
that's the league I fall asleep to. Not because it's boring, because it's late over here and I get tired.
Sure. Well, I'm getting off topic here, but I really like what these guys bring to the table. I think they're sustainable. I think they're guys that, as they make this transition to whatever league that USC is in, do you know what league they're going to be in?
Big Ten.
There you go.
I wrote the Big Ten this morning. So
yeah, there's some Big Ten guys. Brody Kozlowski, I think. Oh, that's where I was going with this. The guy took one of those falls we see in basketball where he's vertical and he just lands on his tailbone. You're like, he's done. Comes back in, gets like 16 rebounds. They were playing. I don't remember who it was. It was my friend Travis Haddix. It was the Fight for the Fight National Hoop Fest. He was awesome. Brody Kozlowski. He's always great every time I watch him play. I thought for sure he was going to stay in state and go to BYU. He's got family ties there to the school. USC, it's actually a pretty big recruiting win for USC to get Brody Kozlowski.
This whole class is USC recruiting wins because we didn't think Trent Perry was going to go there either.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. And Liam Campbell just got it done so early that we didn't really get a chance to see his recruitment play out. So really love this class. Great. I think you could put not in the three-man classes that we talked about earlier, but an unbelievable three-man class.
I think that this one is like, it doesn't have the same kind of like wow factor, but I think this has the when they're upperclassmen kind of factor where you're like, you look back on, you're like, that was a sneaky one. That was a sneaky one.
Sustainable recruits. Sustainable.
Right. We're all about sustainability here at HoopSeen.
That's we're like the hippies of basketball recruiting. We really are. Sorry, I'm pulling up TCU's class here, an historic class. I'll actually throw that to you.
Yeah.
With TCU, like how historic is this class?
I'd have to go back and check the note that I sent you, but I think that it's like 3 out of the 4 or 5 guys are ranked among their best recruits ever per 24/7 Sports. And I use 24/7 Sports as an example because they have that little thing at the bottom where it shows you, hey, this according to us, this is where all these guys stack up. And I think that's a really, really good indicator. And like I said, 3 out of the 4, maybe even 4 out of the 5, or however many guys there are committed, belong to this class. And I think David Punch is a guy that really is going to make a big punch, if you will. In time, I think Jamie Dixon did a really great job with this class. And yeah, I think this is one that shouldn't be slept on. And I know there's a lot of good classes out there, but this TCU class is one that could be very
great size. Micah Robinson's a big, powerful wing, a Texas kid that's at Oak Hill Academy. Malik Diallo out of Utah, big shot blocker, got a lot better now at Wasatch Academy, added a lot of strength. We've seen a lot of Wasatch Academy guys take a slow churn to get to where they're at, but their head coach, Paul Peterson, does such a great job with skill development. I think Malik Diallo comes in. And we know Jamie Dixon thrives on interior defense. I think Diallo will be big in that category, and Ashton Simmons down in Beaumont, Texas.
So check this out. I got the thing here. I got the note now. So Michael Robinson ranks per 24/7 Sports as the number 3 overall of all time since 2003 or whenever 24/7 Sports was established. Michael Robinson's the number 3 overall TCU recruit. And then you go over, and David Punch ranks as the number 8. And then you go over, and Malik Diallo is number 9. So 3 out of the top 10 overall in TCU's history. So this is, I mean, by that note alone, this is by far the best class TCU's ever had.
Desmond Bain kind of started that, right? Like Desmond Bain was a really
made it kind of a cool place to go, right? For a while, like other than freaks like us, like nobody really had a person to point to for TCU.
Oh, I did. I did. But again, I grew up really close.
That's what I'm saying. Like other than freaks like us,
Oh, you did say that. Yeah, you did say that. Sorry. Yeah, Lee Nalen was unbelievable, man. Unbelievable.
Yeah, you're a DFW guy, so yeah, I know you probably had posters.
We played there at TCU. A lot of our postseason stuff was there at TCU. So definitely played there. Well, I did a lot of cheering. I didn't know how much playing I did there at TCU, but
hey, hey, you were there. That's all that matters.
Yeah, I was there. I was clapping on that bench, buddy. I was clapping on that bench. Actually, when I was there, I think I was on crutches. I think I broke my ankle that year. But it's not about my historical.
It's good safety net there. Be like, yeah.
We added Auburn into the conversation just because today, Ja'Kai Howard, probably one of the most exciting guys I've ever seen in person, committed there. Him and Tahid Pettiford. There we go. Got a mouthful. That is an exciting 1-2 duo. That also fits the mold of Auburn, where they're just gonna be like, no, yes.
Did you watch Auburn's game last night against Baylor? They had so many of those moments where it's like so exciting, so electric, with just dogs and athleticism and guys that are not afraid to take those humongous shots. And I think, boy, oh boy, they didn't win that game. It was an endlessly entertaining game, though.
We started class for that with my gambling wins, and that was my third and final gambling win. I actually took the John Rothstein parlay on FanDuel, and I needed Baylor to come back and win, and that was 3 for 3 on my parlays, and because Baylor came back, got that win over Auburn. So yes, I was watching real close.
First of all, that was a hell of a game, and second of all, like that, I think you watch that game, that encapsulates Auburn so well. They have such high highs, and they didn't really hit any low lows in that game. I think Baylor's just really, really good, and Jacoby just went the F off. So that wasn't like an Auburn fail by any means. It was just they played a really good team. But I think that game really points to how Auburn wants to play. And I think Tahid Pettiford is a guy that can kind of take into that Aiden Holloway role, where last night he was pulling from audacious range. I've seen Tahid Pettiford do that a million times on the EYBL circuit or at elite preview camps across the country, him just pulling and me being like, what the hell? And then it going in and being like, all right, well, Tahid Pettiford's doing Tahid Pettiford things.
It's so on brand. He's so on brand for what Auburn
He's a guy that's going to rack up a lot of steals. Go point to that game last night. Auburn was really trying to turn Baylor over and try and get out in transition. And then if you do get out in transition, boy, oh boy, there's not a better player than Ja'Kai Howard, who's going to fly above the rim. That guy's got the craziest bounce.
The craziest bounce. I mean, I would put him in like rare air with like Josh Smith when he was coming out and Bill Walker. I mean, Ja'Kai Howard, it's funny. When I saw Ja'Kai Howard, Aki Collins is now the director over there at OTE, and I've known Aki a long time. He was an assistant coach in college, and he went to go, was a scout in the NBA, and we've known each other for a long time. And I pulled up to him after a game. I'm like, how much does he remind you of Bill Walker, who played at Kansas State and was an absolute prep superstar? He's the closest thing I've seen to Bill Walker. Well, not only is his athleticism mind-boggling, but there's a physicalness with that athleticism that you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's different. He's been doing it since he was here in Georgia at Norcross High School. Like, it's not a new thing, but he's added skill parts to his game. He shot the ball well this spring and summer on the EYBL circuit, and then he's also added some more. His IQ stepped up a little bit, so he's kind of rounding into form as a player. But boy, that athleticism is just
it's special, man. It really is special. So was this hour and a half, Josh. This was a special hour and a half with you.
I liked it, man. I like not being confined to certain time limits. I
do think it's a good time to break. I think we'll come back. Let's see here. What time is it now?
Yeah, tell them so I know too.
We'll come back in an hour and a half. So that is 5 o'clock Eastern time. Okay, 5 o'clock Eastern time. We're going to be back here on Twitter, back here on YouTube or X or whatever we're going to call it. We're going to talk about the 4 biggest storylines so far of the early signing period. Okay. We're going to talk about that.
So if you're stuck in that Atlanta traffic, pull out your phone, put it on your dashboard, and watch us.
Do that. Don't do anything crazy. Don't crash.
No,
we're also going to do a draft. Actually, you know what? Let's start with the draft. We talked about some of the other things that we're going to bring up. Well, we're going to talk about the mid majors. That's what we can do. We're talking about the mid majors as they're leveling up. We're going to talk about the ripple effect on the transfer market. We've got some interesting data from the class of 2022 that was freshmen last year in college basketball. We're going to bring that up. We're going to do a player draft of our 10 most important fits. Okay,
so
not so much
the best players, the fits
that we like, and we're going to do a draft between me and you. We're going to get into that. We're going to talk about some non-power conference stuff. We're going to get into that here on the next segment.
We love the non-powers.
What's that?
We love the non-powers.
We love the non-powers. So we're going to be back again at 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. How about we say 5:15? 5:15 Eastern Standard Time. Give us a little bit of a chance. We'll get it all scheduled. So if you're watching this, it's going to pop up on Twitter. Make sure you follow us on YouTube. We'll pop up there. But for Josh Tech, I almost called you Josh Smith.
Okay. People have mixed us up for years. Like, I get that comparison all the time. Look just like him, I know.
For Jay Smoove and I'm Justin Young, we appreciate you watching. We're going to be back for Volume 2 here in a little over an hour and a half. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon. I gotta get some water on this throat, man. We gotta put some lozenges in there.
That's what I made my tea for. We also got to eat. That'd be cool.
Gotta get a little sustainability. We'll see you soon. Coming back up.